Hello everybody. I am sorry I'm a little late to the game. I'm at my wife's classroom actually. We have been without electricity. So a little late, but better late than never. Wanted to create a video here about our discussion this week. I teach at Children Hog Elementary. We are a K through 5 school, mostly kids with poor socioeconomic situations. They are really they're just a good group of country kids, but they are we have mostly most of our kids qualify for free or reduced lunch. I'm the only 5th grade teacher there. I have about 210 kids. We have a really good staff this year. This is the 2nd year for our principal. First year as head principal. Last year she was interim. So we're really kind of in a transitional period within our building. This is my 2nd year there also. So we're really turning things around. This class has been eye-opening for me. I think it's something I would like to roll with, but there are some challenges. That's the next bullet I'm coming to here. I'm reading off a paper over here, actually my phone, the points we need to cover. Organizational or other challenges. We have a limited amount of computers, period. That's it. I've got a motivated staff that's on board. I have a good IT department. Our equipment is old and needs replaced, and there's simply no money for that. I also have a bunch of kids who have abilities with Snapchat and Facebook, but that's about it. They're going to need some hands-on experience, so I don't think the flipped classroom will work for me. I also want to say about the flipped classroom that I don't want to require these kids to do that at home. You know, school is as much a job for them as it is for me. Why are we asking these kids to take it upon themselves to do this at home? We should be able to teach them in an 8 to 3 school day all they need to know. And I'm not saying don't give them any homework, but come on, really, you know, my kids can't do this. I wouldn't ask them to do it. Maybe if you had a group of high-functioning, highly motivated students, yeah, they could take something at home and roll with it. And I'm not saying they can't look at resources at home, but I'm just saying a continuous flipped classroom, in my mind, what a flipped classroom would be, I'm not going to ask them to do that at home. Anyhow, got off on that tangent, but really my main challenge would be equipment within the building. I can get more computers for my room. I could probably get about 7. I have 3. I could get 4 more easily. Space would be another thing that would be a problem. We're pretty cramped. We're pretty crowded. I have 27 to 30 plus students. Last year I had 30 plus. This year I've got 27. So really, you know, you got bigger kids. Really limits you on what you have in your room. And you know, and elementary school kids, they benefit surely from online learning, but let's give them the basics. Let's give them the hands-on. They need to be writing. They need to be engaged in the classroom in more of an old school traditional method, and then blossom from that. I do use the lab quite a bit, and my kids are going to start blogging on their own. So I'm not saying that this isn't really welcome or needed or valuable in the elementary school classroom. I'm saying that it is a really good side piece. Blended learning is a really good side piece. It's a really good way to expose them to the big bad world, so to speak. So I've taken some steps to get some computers in the room because, like I say, I really want to embrace this and roll with it, not to the extent that we're seeing in some of these models, but in my own way. And we all know what's best for our own building. I can't tell anyone in the class what's best for their building, and they can't tell me what's best for mine. You can't lump any two grades together. You can't lump any group of students together. So I know my kids that I've got coming, and I think this will be a better fit next year for me. But we're going to try it this year and see what happens in the lesson that I designed and handed in a couple weeks ago. Best practices in blended learning. Uniformity in the software that you use. We don't need to spread ourselves too thin here with using a bunch of different things for a bunch of different kids. Differentiate your targets within the software that you're using. Differentiate lessons within the software that you're using. And if you are using a piece that you can't really differentiate a lot with, then I wouldn't use it at all. SITS has really come a long way in the state of Kentucky in me being able to create assessments on SITS and use it really as a blended learning tool. And it's really focused on the standards, and I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Anything that you use, and this is speaking as a Kentucky public school teacher, you've got to relate it to the standards. If it does not relate to your standards in some way, it does not matter what kind of a great tool it is. Why are you using it? We need to be teaching the standards. We need to be teaching the standards. I can't say that enough. I say that enough in my own building. We are assessed by K-Prep, and I'm not all on the testing bandwagon, but if that's what we have to do, and if that's what the outlet we're given to judge our school, then folks, we can't ignore that. So use things that are going to teach to the standards, teach to the test. And you've heard, don't teach to the test. Well, come on. I mean, that's what we're judged on. So implementation and assessment, just like I said, use SITS to assess. Make sure your assessments are rigorous. Gosh, I can't stress that enough. Make sure your assessments are rigorous. If they're not, then why are you doing them? You have to, critical steps that must be followed. You have to keep your students aware of their progress, and you have to be aware of their progress. Why are you having these kids do this if they have no clue of how they're doing? So you have to be aware, stay on top of it. Don't just plop them down in front of a computer and say, do this. If you don't know how they're doing, then why are you having them do that? Success factors, benefits or outcomes. Again, just how well you relate it to the standards, how well that's going to transfer over to a paper pencil test. Expose them to written assessments. Don't just plop them down in front of a computer and say, do this really cool, neat, great, nifty thing, and then not have them relate it some way back, paper and pencil. Because K-Prep is paper pencil. And yes, there's talk of, oh, it's not going to be next year. I'll believe it when I see it. But it is this year. And it's going to be next year. And more than likely the year after that. Kentucky has no clue of where they're going to go with this yet. They're looking at several different ways to revamp assessment. So, if you want success, then you have to assess your children the way they are assessed in the end of the year, because that's, as sad as it is, that's the only score that matters. Tips for success and pitfalls to avoid. I don't really have any tips for success. trial and error. It's what works for you is not going to work for me. Use research-based material, use research-based programs. Make sure it's rigorous. Make sure that you know what the kids are doing. I've covered all that. Pitfalls to avoid. Don't get on the tech bandwagon. And I've covered this too, without assessing your kid's paper pencil. So I hope I've covered everything correctly. So I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate your feedback. I may be a little harsh. I like to pick fights. I like to argue. That's how we learn. That's how I learn. So if I've come across as a little harsh to any of you, I apologize. Again, I apologize for the lateness of this assignment, but been stuck in the holler for the past couple of days. No electricity. Had to come out here in order to get this done, or I don't know. It wasn't going to get done. So thank you all, and good luck, and have a good spring break next week.